Hello and welcome to Dice and Demons. I'm Emma and today I want to show you how I'm painting a tank inspired by this beautiful painting by Vincent van Gogh. It's called Starry Night and I just love everything about it, from the colors to the sense of movement to the way the paint is used with a lot of texture. It's just beautiful, and I've already taken this as my inspiration for a Space Marine I painted previously, but I thought it would be a lot of fun to try it again but with a much bigger canvas, and so I landed on painting a tank like this. This is a Landraider from the Horus Heresy series, but it could be any sort of tank really. The important thing for me was that it had a lot of big flat surfaces where I could just have fun and experiment with both the painting style and the texture of the paint, and that's just a lot easier on something like a tank compared to, let's say, a Space Marine, for instance. So while I am by no means trying to get like an exact replica of the original painting at all, I do want to make sure that I incorporate the most sort of iconic details from the painting so that you might be able to just slightly recognize it. So that's why I just started by drawing with a pencil the moon and some of the stars, just to make sure that I would have them in there, and I was relatively certain where they were going to be placed. Then I grabbed some contrast paint, and that's just because it's easy to work with and quick to get a feel for the colors and how they work together. This one is Yand Yellow, and this is just really a base color just to make sure that everything more or less matches up. It has you could use any sort of paint. There is nothing special about the contrast paints in this way I'm using it here. It's just to get started and know where I want the colors more or less to be placed in relation to each other. Then this one is Gryph-hound Orange. The moon on the original painting is not that orange, but I decided I wanted a little bit more color variation here, so I went with orange both for the moon and the middle of the stars as well. I do like very saturated color schemes with lots of bright colors, and so I thought, it would be okay to just deviate a little bit with the color choices as well. Then for the sort of big swirl that I want around the place where the weapon is going to be attached, I decided to go for the Athematic Blue contrast paint, and that is because in the original painting it's a little bit lighter with the swirl, and I wanted to make sure that it was in place from the very beginning so that it would be something that would be worked on and not left out. And then for the rest of the, canvas, I just used the Talazar Blue contrast paint. And as you'll notice, I don't paint it all the way through. I just place the color so there is a base, but it doesn't really matter to me that it's not painted as exact as you might like, because this is going to be a question of adding a whole bunch of layers and adding a lot of paint and a lot of texture as well with the paint. So it's not that important. And here you can see the different colors I'm using, and it's just a variety of blue colors, and I don't think it matters much what kind of colors you're choosing, actually, just as long as you have a good variety of blues and perhaps some grays, blacks, turquoise, and then some different shades of orange and yellow. So these are the colors I've been using, and I've mixed them all up, but you could use any sort of colors. I don't really think it matters much, just that they need to have a little bit of body to them if you want to also experiment and have fun with the texture, because if you just used, let's say, contrast paints for this, they don't have that much texture, and so you wouldn't get that dimension to your color scheme or your painting if that's what you want. As you can see here, I'm starting with one of the darker blues, and the reason for that is because I wanted to have a nice sort of darker base and then put the lighter colors on top of that. And you'll notice that I'm not painting with an ordinary brush. I'm actually using a silicone brush, and that's because I'm not quite sure exactly how Van Gogh actually painted his paintings. I haven't done a lot of studying, perhaps I should have. But it looks to me like they have been painted with either a sort of coarse brush that leaves very visible brush marks on the canvas, or perhaps even with something akin to a spatula. And to get the same sort of feel on a much smaller canvas, I've decided to go with the silicone brush, because it will leave, especially if you let it have a lot of paint on the brush when you use it, it will just leave a nice clear mark that I think sort of emulates what that's emulates the technique Van Gogh is using. Of course, again, this is just for fun, and I'm in no way comparing my my silly painted tank or my painting abilities to one of the greatest impressionistic painters out there. This is purely for fun, and just because I really love the way he paints and his colors. So it's meant as my way of celebrating the colors and the painting, and not my way of trying to say that this is like great art or anything. Yeah. I just wanted to get that out of the way. Then I'm using one of the turquoise colors to try and paint in the swirls. I wasn't completely happy with the way they were placed. Perhaps, I mean, it makes sense around the huge round weapon attachment thing. Is it called a sponson or something? I'm not quite sure. But I really wanted the swirls, and I thought, I mean, again, this is just for fun. So I left it there, even though I think it perhaps looks a little bit too rough or too big. But at the same time, it does just make a little bit of sense. And so I decided to go with it and see where it would take me. I'm also using a little bit of gray. And I think this is just a question of, I didn't want the whole thing to be gray. As I said, I like saturated colors, but I think this is a question of just adding a whole bunch of layers building on top of each other to give this sense of movement and this sense of depth. And so you just need a lot of different colors of this more or less the same color, but with like some that are very saturated and some that are dark, some that are light, and so on, just to give enough variation to make sure that it looks like a lot is going on, while at the same time it all blends together. I don't know if that makes sense. After I was fairly happy with the blue colors, I started working a little bit on the stars and the moon, and it was just really a question of trying to find the right colors and the right way of using the brush and the direction of the brush strokes to make sure that the stars and moon would stand out, while at the same time also being really visually incorporated into the rest. So I purposefully used both a little bit of blue and a little bit of yellow here at the sort of outer edges of the stars and moon to make sure that it would not just like stand out starkly with a lot of high contrast, but would look like they actually were an integral part of the painting. And that was especially challenging for me because if you've been following my channel and you know the kind of things I usually paint, I really like high contrast stuff, and I like to do very graphical patterns where you have nice sharp black outlines to separate geometrical shapes and stuff. So painting stuff like this, which is a lot more loose and a lot more sort of blended, it's a big challenge for me, but it's also quite liberating and quite fun and very creative to just try something new and different. I then decided that while I like the blue and I like the moons and the stars, I needed to build up a little bit more depth to the whole thing. So I added a bit of more of the dark blue and also some dark purple, because I thought it was just a little bit boring and I needed a little bit more visual interest. And so from this point onwards, it was just a matter of going back and forth, adding more depth, more layers, building it up with the same colors, and then trying to find out, okay, do I want this to be a little bit lighter? Do I want this part to be a little bit darker? Because I didn't want it to be the exact same blue color all over the place. I wanted to have a bit of variation, both because it looks more interesting, but also because that's actually also what you find in the original painting. I had a small book about Van Gogh lying in front of me the whole time while I was painting, and so I on and off grabbed the book and grabbed the tank and tried to see if they matched just slightly, which was actually quite fun. And again, here you can see, of course, the original painting, which is just all sorts of beautiful. And I am actually just noticing that there is actually a little bit of brown mixed in the swirls, which I don't have. As you can see here, this is the finished version. But it's just stuff like that that keeps painting interesting, that you can always improve, you can always come up with something new, and there is always stuff to try out. So anyways, this is my take on a Starry Nights tank. This is obviously just the one side of the tank, because I want the middle and then the opposite side to be painted also with images from Van Gogh, but different images, just to make something, again, something new and something that would be fun to experiment with. So I'm really hoping you like this one, guys, and I'm very interested to hear your thoughts and your feedback, and if you have any sort of suggestions as to what I might try next. My current idea is I'll go for the sunflowers, perhaps on the middle, and then an image of a field with a dark sky on the other side. But I'm definitely open to suggestions. Also, just a slight note, I know that a lot of people are going to be saying, oh, you should cut one of the weapons off because Van Gogh cut one of parts of one of his ears off. And while I do know why you're saying it and why it's, it's, well, fun, I'm not going to be doing that, and I'm not going to be referencing that. And that's just because I think Van Gogh is so much more than this very serious symptom of his mental illness, and I don't want to make fun of him for having mental health problems. I just really want to do this as a way of being inspired by his great art in my own humble little way. So yeah, I just also wanted to get that out there. So anyways, I really hope you like this, and as I said, I would love your feedback on it. And before you leave, I would also love to take the opportunity to thank the wonderful people who support Dice and Demons over on Patreon. So thank you so much to Thomas Madsen, Scott Broadway, Gwenna L, Queen's Wolf, Job Double J Terrain, Mola Mola, Steve Eberly, Nassim Makaya, Bosworthy Rogue, Mando Project, Starcorn85, S. Bear, Echinococus, Elliot Philby, Cyber Fossil, and Cinnamon Coffee 87. I'll leave a link to the Patreon in the show notes if you would like to also join them in supporting Dice and Demons. Also remember that if you want to stay up to date on my painting projects, you can also follow me as Dice and Demons over on X, formerly known as Twitter, and on Instagram as well. So thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye!